Hi, this is Doug Campbell-John, your host of Revenue Renegades. And in this week's episode, I am very pleased to be joined by Dan Lee, the CEO and co-founder of Nooks. I'm going to let Dan tell us all about his founding story. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
So, lots of founders as listeners, we always love to hear the starting story. Tell us how the idea for Nooks came along and if there were kind of any pivots along the way.
Yeah. So really quick background. I before starting Nooks, I studied computer science and AI at Stanford.
Mhm.
That's where I met my co-founders, Rohan and Nikhil. And I had mostly done work in machine learning.
Mhm.
So machine learning research as well as some applied stuff. Right before Nooks, I was working at Scale AI
Mhm.
on their ML team pretty early on, and ended up transitioning remote there because of the pandemic, and then started hacking on Nooks. And Nooks started very different from where it is today. It actually started as a virtual classroom for Stanford office hours.
That's very different.
Yeah, very different. All my friends were still in school and ended up doing, classes on Zoom. And I was interested in one, like Nooks actually started as a project, not as a company. I was interested in learning. And I had mostly done ML work, building models, right? And Nooks is actually the first like full stack product that I built, and my goal was how do I have faster feedback loops? Models take days and weeks to train,
Mhm.
and months and quarters to figure out if it's actually going to be useful. And products you can kind of ship and within minutes and hours start getting immediate customer feedback and
Mhm.
making an impact. So yeah, my first goal was to learn, and the problem right in front of me was virtual classes. I think that summer of 2020, like two Stanford classes started using it, and then in the fall, like a bunch of other Stanford classes started using it. So it ended up being like most of the Stanford computer science department plus several other departments used it for office hours during the pandemic.
Okay.
And we had a bunch of interesting features. You could do like problem sets together where, each group, like you could split into different groups and be working on different problems. And once someone finishes, you switch groups. And it was like this nicer version
Mhm.
of Zoom rooms.
Okay.
You had a way to watch lectures together while you're sitting at a table with your friends. And you could talk to your friends while watching the lecture. And, a bunch of like pretty interesting, like trying to innovate on like the virtual education experience. And Stanford actually wanted to pay us like $2 per student
Mm.
per quarter. And we were like super excited, but then we realized that students wanted to go back in person, and we weren't sure how much longevity there was in this
Right.
business. So we instead switched to like virtual office. We figured remote work would stick around. So we had product and marketing and sales and engineering teams all using Nooks to work together, kind of like Zoom, but more for co-working
Mm.
than for meeting. And we found that sales teams were actually our most engaged users.
Mm.
And that was really interesting. You watched The Wolf of Wall Street?
Yep. Great
Yeah.
movie.
So you know the scene where everyone huddles around Leonardo DiCaprio making calls and selling penny stocks, and
Yep.
he does really well, so they copy him and make a lot of money and party, and it's kind of for that use case, it's exaggerated, but
Mhm.
figuring out what works and replicating that across the team. And it was a bunch of junior sales reps that were spending time making calls in their bedroom,
Right.
and then they got feedback once a week from their manager that listened to their gong calls from the last week. And they then they use Nooks to actually be able to do this together, like like the sales floor, and to replicate that in-person experience. And this was really interesting to us because myself, Rohan, Nikhil, we all had engineering backgrounds. And
Mhm.
if you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have said like sales. That's a dirty job, right? Shouldn't you build a
Right.
product that sells itself?
Yep.
Um, but in spending time with the teams using Nooks, we realized that one, it's not a dirty job. It's actually like a very human job,
Mhm.
right? You're solving people's problems, creating customer value. Um, it's this great fit for collaboration because you want tight feedback loops and to figure out what works.
Yep.
Um, and also, the job is going to change. It was early 2022 when we started focusing on the sales use case from virtual classroom, then virtual office, then sales.
Yep.
Um, and ChatGPT hadn't come out yet. We were surprised how quickly um, that AI could do a lot of this work. But we found, hey, they're writing emails and making calls and doing research, and probably this is not going to look like this in the near future.
Right.
Um, so I was always interested in originally starting Nooks. Can you build like build a better way for people to work together,
Mhm.
kind of online. And then if you get that working, you have a lot of data on how they work. And can you use that data to make it smart? Can
Right.
you automate manual work? Can you automate, best practices and winning behaviors? And we found that, sales was just this great use case for all of the above.
So you basically started in 2000, and were you doing that full time at that point when you started, or was it still just kind of a project on the side?
Yeah, so I was class of 2021 at Stanford.
Okay.
I stopped in 2019 to work at scale,
Mm. Okay.
and then started working on Nooks in like mid 2020 as a project. Um, we raised like a pre-seed and a seed while we were still kind of in the wilderness, figuring out if we were a virtual classroom or a virtual office, or there
Right.
was even a little bit of virtual events in there.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then focused, found the sales use case and started focusing that on that in 2022. And that's kind of when we started, got out of the wilderness and started growing pretty quickly.
Got it. And so what does the product lineup look like today?
Yeah. So at a high level, Nooks is the surface where you're doing all of your, like I guess sales reps, source deals and they close deals.
Uh-huh.
And we believe that the biggest opportunity in AI automation is on the sourcing side, right?
Uh-huh.
You can't 10x your win rate, and you can't 10x your ACV very easily, um, or cut deal cycles that much, right? So you can't 10x your ability to close, but uh, on the sourcing side, 90% of the work is probably able to be done by AI today. Writing emails, making calls, doing research. So Nooks helps with all of the above.
So on the kind of let's break those down. So on the kind of research side, obviously you've got the traditional list companies, whether it's ZoomInfo, Apollo, and you've got this next generation of companies, you know, Pocus, User Gems, Common Room, et cetera, that are all doing the signal stuff. How do you fit into that world? Right.
Yeah. So I'd say of those two buckets, I think there's always going to be a long tail of kind of data going in.
Uh-huh.
If you look at mature industries like finance, for example, there's like, people buy data sets of the security camera footage on grocery store parking lots to
Right.
trade on the stocks, right? Like there's just going to be always a long tail of data inputs. Um, I think the second bucket that you're talking about is more synthesis on top to, turning from data into insight. Uh,
Mhm.
and we play more in that space, right? So we
Okay.
integrate with like ZoomInfo uses Nooks actually, um,
Okay.
and so we integrate with ZoomInfo and a bunch of all the other data providers, um, and we so I'd say maybe more compete in that other category that you were describing of like signals and research.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then so part of that is all the like, who should I go after kind of problem. Then there's the it sounds like the how to reach them thing. Are you have dialers and stuff like that, like with like competing, I assume like competing with Aircall and folks like that in that realm?
Yeah, yeah. I'd say we own the end-to-end process. Like basically
Okay.
think of a rep's workflow. A rep say has 500 accounts.
Mhm.
And if they're an SDR, they'll make money when they book meetings in that set of accounts and
Right.
generate opportunities. If they're an AE, they make money when they close, deals in that set of accounts. Um, we first help them research their book of business to
Uh-huh.
identify, you can't sell all 500 at the same time.
Right.
And which ones are, do they have a competitive renewal coming up? Because we identified that from previous conversations we had, or they have a prior champion, or they're increasing their headcount in the department that you help with, so they're investing in this area, or they have
Uh-huh.
a relevant tech stack, or all these different signals that like a rep would be identifying, right? Both looking through first party data sources like your CRM and transcripts and calls and nooks, as well as through third party sources like a ZoomInfo or LinkedIn or 10K reports, web research, etc. Um, and we help prioritize. Here are the accounts that we should be going after.
Mhm.
We actually help you identify which people at those accounts we should be going after. So we have models trained on, but both to help you like identify who based on like the signals, but also identify um, sorry, both identify which accounts based on those signals, and then
Yep.
who at those accounts based on their persona and other like kind of interaction history that we've had.
Okay.
Um, and then we'll draft copy So both email messages as well as like call scripts that you can use to send, and then we'll help send those emails as well as um, place calls to them and
Nice.
basically automate that whole process, all the different pieces of generated pipeline.
So I've read, like, I was in prepping for this, I was looking at some of the posts that you put out there. You talk a bunch about the kind of the broken state of go-to-market SaaS stacks, and then I would assume that what you're describing here is consolidating a lot of those pieces. Where do you think it's most broken today?
Yeah, so I'd say consolidation is not the goal.
Okay.
I think productivity is the goal. I think consolidation is necessary but not sufficient.
Got it.
Um, for example, we can go build, the way to grow in the past as a sales tech company is to go, Outreach was trying to build Gong and Gong's trying to build Clary and,
Right.
Clary's trying to build X. And that's the way to grow because there's like this fixed TAM of software spend, right? Because
Right.
software is enabling work and, there's, tens of billions of dollars spent on that sales software. But the opportunity today is orders of magnitude bigger,
Mhm.
because if you look at all the people that are using that software, that's hundreds of billions of dollars, and AI can now read and write and speak and reason like a rep.
Right.
So yeah, uh, I think consolidation is necessary. If you think of a fragmented stack today,
Mhm.
which most people have, it requires a rep to be human glue between a bunch of like kind of disconnected workflows.
Yep.
So you have you know human glue here, human glue next, workflow next, right? And when writing an email is manual, it's kind of okay if a person needs to find that email address in Zoom Info and then the deal notes in Salesforce and the transcript and Gong in order to go write that email because it takes longer to
Right.
write the email than it does to go find, be the human glue. Um, but when AI can write that email, that shrinks the workflow. And now the human glue is actually takes more time
Right.
than it takes to go write the email. So it doesn't work anymore. So consolidation is necessary to get the productivity gains that AI kind of enables. But it is not sufficient because if you just go and build all the same stack that you have today,
Yep.
it's not actually built to do work for you.
You're not taking it. So what do you typically, when you're going into an account, what are you typically replacing or going up against in a competitive situation?
Um, Yeah, it can vary
You
certainly.
you can
Uh,
you can leave out the competitor names if you want that one. I'm just thinking more about
y
the replacement sale, right?
yeah, yeah.
For our listeners, if they're thinking about this going like, "Okay, I've got a fragmented stack. What can Nooks come and kinda solve for me?" Right? Yeah, or
Yep,
replace me.
yeah. So we play in several different pieces, right? Like often you have a very fragmented stack for generating pipeline.
Right.
Um, and we can often replace most of that stack. We don't compete in the data piece. Like you still
Uh-huh.
probably need a data provider. Um,
Yeah.
but we do actually, integrate with all the data providers, and but I guess the rest of it, like the action, so the making calls, the writing and sending emails, doing the research and signals piece, we help with all of those areas.
Got it.
And I think in the calling piece, like that's the area kind of where we started.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's actually pretty greenfield. Like, most
Huh.
people have, some VoIP thing where there's a phone number on their screen, and they click it, and they call it, and it's a little better than their cell phone.
Right.
Um, and it's actually great because we run in trials in our sales process, and, we'll come in and, this is, like, decades old technology, right? And we come in, and we'll just, like, double and triple their pipeline per rep. And, we can show that in, like, a week or 2, and that's why we're able to grow quickly.
That's
Um
amazing.
yeah, I'd say, like, calling automation today is kind of like email automation a decade ago, where,
Uh,
everyone realized you don't want to pay reps to manually bulk send emails.
right.
Um, and people are realizing today you don't want to pay reps to listen to ringing and answering machines and finding phone numbers and taking
Right.
notes and, all the manual shit around calls.
Got it. So are you so I'm sorry, I'm nerding out on this for a minute here. Like, so then
Yeah.
you are like, if you're kind of sourcing a list that according to someone's, ideal customer profile or their buyer persona, it's like, here's a list of calls that you're going to go make. You're kind of doing the dialing for them. And if you don't have the right number, you're kind of falling over into data sources and then retrying, or like all of that work is kind
Yep.
of just
Yep.
handled for the rep.
Exactly. Like, reps should talk to prospects.
Yep.
and reps should define the strategy.
Yep.
They should label edge cases once, not twice, right?
Mhm.
Um, and AI should be doing kind of more and more of that work for you over time. Like the way I think about it, software sales software used to enable work. Now AI can do work. Um, there is a new type of data that you need in order to do the work. You can't train a model, for example, on all the uh, emails you sent in the CRM before and expect it to
Mhm.
start, sending emails as good as you.
Right.
Or you can't, train a model on all the deals you've won before in your CRM and expect it to start having a, as good a fit model as your best rep,
Mhm.
um, because your best rep is taking into account, like a highly dimensional combination of, what's my interaction history with this person, with other people at their company, what are their relationships with those other people at the company, what's
Mhm.
their tech stack, what phase of like the buying cycle or awareness cycle are they part of, um, all these different factors to understand, are they a fit, what's the best timing, what's the best message that's going to resonate. um, and it's our job, like being that surface that's doing work for the rep.
Mhm.
Uh, uh, it's our job to capture the rep's mental model, right? This is data that doesn't exist
Mhm.
in the CRM, and to be, you know, doing. Reps are not naturally incentivized to label data, right? They're
Yeah.
incentivized to hit quota.
Right.
Um, so we have to be really thoughtful about both like the product principles, like the rep incentives on like why are they labeling data for us,
Mhm.
um, as well as the technical pieces, right? You need a transparent feedback mechanism, right?
Mhm.
Your rep should always be able to make progress, right? They need to trust the outputs that we're giving them. Um, and yeah, like basically building human in the loop AI. Um,
And
and
what so what are those kind of things that they're labeling for you, right? Because just having lived the world of CRM for a long time, at Salesforce, then LinkedIn, like, reps hate putting in any
yep,
data, period, right? So how
yeah,
have you gotten them to put in any data of value?
yeah. Like as a rep, you're incentivized to hit quota. Why do I need to
Yeah.
update Salesforce, right?
Right, right, exactly.
I think the opportunity today is that AI, the reason to label data is because AI can now do more of that work for you.
Yeah.
And it needs to be immediate, right? There's no like, hey, it's going to 3 months from now, deliver
Mhm.
some more value, right? It
Right.
needs to be once you give some feedback, it should immediately, make improvements, right? And that's how you actually drive the rep incentives to act, to go label more data, and to, you're basically helping them, making them more likely to hit their quota, right? When they label more data. Um,
Can you give an example of, like, what a rep might label something as, and what's the benefit that they'd see right away from that?
yeah. So, for example, when we do research and identify signals on whether an account is a good fit,
Mhm.
um, we'll cite the data sources that we show. We'll cite the reason why from that data source we, believe that this is the case, and
Mhm.
reps can, say yes or no.
And they'll tell me
Um,
that, yeah.
yeah, and we can learn over time. Which data sources do we trust? Right? What is their interpretation when when it says they have a renewal coming up, but this competitor actually always does 2-year deals, right? Like,
Mhm.
that's something you probably need to learn from the rep. Um,
Right.
so that's like one example. Another example is when we draft emails for you, we'll give several different versions,
Mhm.
and the rep picks which version they want, and then they'll also be able to give AI suggestions on like, hey, actually make this part shorter and add this, add
Mhm.
information from this data source, right? And then we have memory so that we'll learn over time,
Yeah.
um, and yeah, like but bunch of things like that where uh, it's reps shouldn't feel like they're training, labeling data or
Right, right, that's what I was gonna say.
models, but
Yeah, I
um,
mean, like, that's a great example with the email picking. So if you're saying, like, "Here's a few choices," you can see which one they picked, and then you can also see, I assume, what they actually sent, and if they have, edited response rates and all that piece, so you've got this feedback loop that's
yeah,
coming
so
back.
like, I'm sure a lot of people listening watch Netflix.
Yep.
The Netflix algorithm learns faster when it suggests different options of movies for you to watch, and then you pick across those rather
Mhm.
than if it just passively observed you, searching for movies and picking yourself.
Yep.
Um, because the reason is you're able to kind of test the edge of the decision boundary, right?
Mhm.
If something is like kind of a close call, right? It might throw it's called like a bandit problem in information theory. Like you can
Mhm.
test things that are kind of close to the edge of the decision boundary, and you see which one do they actually pick.
Interesting. Very interesting. So, you're already talking about AI automating a lot of the prospecting piece and a lot of the dialing. What do you think how do you think that's the role of the seller is going to change over the next few years?
Um, yeah, I think it's really interesting when AI lets you do more with less.
Mhm.
What happens? I think sales is much more similar to, say, for example, recruiting
Mhm.
than it is customer support.
Yep.
And I'll explain why. Like as a customer, ideally, I can get an automatic answer to my question. Right?
Mhm.
That's like the best customer experience, probably full automation.
Yeah.
Um, but as a candidate, um, I'm not going to take a job if I don't meet someone at a company
Right.
because I can only take one job,
Mhm.
and I'm going to be picky about it. And if you're good, you have a bunch of people trying to hire you, so you're gonna have a decision to make, and probably you pick the one where you build trust and a relationship with someone.
Yep.
Um, and same thing with the buyer, right? When you're spending a lot of money on something and solving an important problem, and you have a bunch of people trying to sell you things, then probably you're gonna pick the one where you build trust and a relationship.
Mhm.
Um, so, I think it also depends then on, like, the stage of the company, right? Humans are gonna be selling, um, but, if you, are already kind of, like, tapping out your TAM, probably you can, do the same with less, right? You probably need fewer
Mhm.
people. But if you're actually in growth phase and you can make sellers more efficient, you might actually want more sellers.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I think it can vary, like, it depends on how you parameterize it. Um, I think the responsibility of generating pipeline will always be, someone will own that. I think that job though can change, right? The reason why the SDR role has existed historically is because you don't want your best enterprise sellers writing emails all day or making calls all
Right.
day because it's low
Yep.
leverage. Um, but when you can make generating pipeline more efficient, you might want your bestseller, having those conversations with prospects and defining the strategy. You'll still probably need a talent pipeline, in order to kind of promote, and kind of a place to start in the sales org.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think there's actually going to be more variance in the future because of the efficiency gains. Right, there are just more things that can actually work.
What do you think about the whole AI SDR space?
Yeah, I think like what I was saying, right? Uh, as a buyer, the ideal experience is probably not to get automated outreach.
Right.
And I think a lot of people have like when you have you know either when you don't have sales reps yet and you kind of want to test something, test selling, or if you have an ACV that doesn't support using people,
Mhm.
then I think this can kind of be like a short term boost that people have tried. But I think uh, yeah, I think the results speak loudest.
Yeah. Yeah. I assume that was your answer. I just thought I'd throw it out
Yeah.
there based on your previous comments. So let's switch gears a little bit. You're a first-time CEO, correct? Mhm.
Yep. Yep.
Tell me a little bit about, like, the lessons you've had going through these pivots and obviously growing the team is how big now?
We're like 180.
Okay. Yeah. So, like, that's a lot of learning in a short period of time. Tell me about
Yeah.
what are some of the kind of biggest lessons you've had and any kind of, like, hacks you've come up with for, kind of people management or hiring? Mm.
So Nooks is the biggest company I've worked at. Um, it's also my first real job.
Yeah.
I've interned at companies that were all less than 150 people.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, I think it's definitely been interesting, lots of learning. I'm very fortunate to have mentors and advisors who are, much more experienced than me that I can lean on. I think it's extra important for me to understand when uh, there's something that I don't know and who to go to for help with it. Um, and yeah, really helpful to have like a support network. Um, I think some of the advantages of being a first time founder and kind of being first for a lot of things is that we get to approach things differently. I think the way companies are built today is probably different from how companies were built a decade ago. And we have a core value called ask why.
Mm,
um, this means we should understand everything from first principles. um, if you're doing something without knowing why, probably you should stop and understand why first,
mm,
because there's a chance maybe you shouldn't be doing it, right?
mm,
um, we're building our own company, and not, there's no like role model of like, hey, here, we want to look, we're like X for sales, right? um, and I think approaching every new problem with a fresh perspective, I think, is actually one of our competitive advantages.
what is so, there's obviously, and people take this to extremes, there's people who are like, "Oh, we're gonna have, sub 10-person companies or sub 50-person companies that are gonna be a billion-dollar company." You're on the other side of that, employee headcount. What is it roughly, what's the breakdown in terms of, like, product and go to market, first of all, on that? Then how do you think about, you know, using AI in terms of the efficiency of your own organization, besides your own products, of course? Right.
Yeah. Um, breakdown, we're about, say, of headcount is like a third, on like engineering, product design, like that side of the house. Um, and the most of the rest is go to market, and then we have some G&A.
Mhm,
I think we use AI across the board.
mhm,
We use plenty of AI coding tools. Our engineering team is very efficient and productive. You know, we I'm uh, we were early beta testers of Cursor. Michael came to the office and was, kind of working with our engineering team. Um, we uh, Yeah, we use AI, I think, in every function. We actually test our sales reps uh, for kind of AI fluency and problem solving. Um,
how do you do that?
yeah, we have this exercise. We have them learn a new tool,
Mhm,
um, one that we expect that they haven't seen before,
okay,
and we see, how do they do? Like, can they figure it out? Like, how do they approach it?
mm,
Um, I think, it's hard to succeed these days and compete if you're not AI fluent, and if you're not good at problem solving, because you can get so much leverage from the right tools.
mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think like the profile across the board of across positions kind of changes as AI gives you leverage.
What's been the most, you know, I I would assume, like anyone, you go into a role assuming you have certain assumptions of what the role is gonna be about. What's been kind of the biggest surprise for you about being CEO?
um, there have been lots. Definitely has evolved over different phases. I started building the product. I wrote a lot of the code in the early days of Nooks, and uh, have shifted over time more and more to be a recruiter.
Mhm,
um,
right.
uh, and and everything else in between. I was our head of finance and our head of people, and et cetera for a long time. Um, uh, yeah, like what's been most surprising, I think. Um, people say it, people say it all the time, but I think it's definitely sunk in as the team has grown. Um, as a leader, both for myself and for like, all the leaders on the team, uh, I can do everything right, but hire a bad team and we're not
Mhm,
going to do very well.
right.
Um, but I can do everything else wrong and hire an amazing team, and we're probably gonna do pretty well.
Yep.
And like this is true of like all the leaders that we have too. I think that the importance of like the team and just thoughtfulness in building the team. I think probably that's been one of the areas of like kind of biggest learning, and um, that I think about the most today.
Is there anything in your interviewing process where you think about, like, obviously you mentioned, you're looking for AI fluency, you're looking for problem solving skills. Is there anything that without giving things away to candidates who hope actually if you give away something now and a candidate learned about it on this podcast, they've actually done their research and they're probably it's a good
Yeah,
signal.
everyone
Um,
come on the podcast.
yeah, yeah. But what is the when you think about what kind of questions do you ask in an interview where you're trying to kind of filter people out, or how do you think about after people have gone through an interview process, how are you deciding as a group whether that person is kind of a thumbs up or thumbs down?
So I think a lot probably do tie to our values. I mentioned, I mentioned the problem solving piece, right?
Uh-huh.
This is like related to the ask why value, right? You
Yep.
should be able to understand things deeply. Uh, I'll give another example. I ask every engineer, would you rather have really interesting, impactful customer problems and business problems, but technically it's really boring?
Uh-huh.
Uh, or would you rather have really interesting, hard technical problems, but not understand the customer and business impact?
And,
And
and
you'll see engineers in both buckets.
uh-huh.
Um, we, especially for kind of product facing roles, much prefer the former,
Right.
uh, where we have a very hard interview process, and we can screen for kind of technical talent that way. But motivation should be aligned to kind of customer and business goals.
Right.
Um, this is related to our value of earn customer love, right?
Uh-huh.
Everyone across the board, from whether it's customer facing or not customer facing, should be focused on earning customer love.
Yeah.
Um, and our engineering team, we have like 13 international math and coding and physics Olympiad medalists. Or sorry, medals across the team.
Yeah.
Um, but they are all motivated by customer problems.
Yeah.
And it's something that you won't always find.
So ask why, the focus on the customer problem. What are some of the other values?
Do more with less.
Okay.
Um, as a small startup, we have to prioritize ruthlessly.
Uh-huh.
We can do anything, but not everything.
Yep.
Um, so you should only do the most important things. If there's something that's not important, don't do it. Be lazy.
How do you determine what's the most important thing?
Um, I think uh, it's related to kind of customer and business goals. I think goal setting is very important, right? Everyone should be very clear and aligned on the goals.
Uh-huh.
I think like in creating a high performing team, there are like kind of uh, maybe three ingredients. Like one is the input should be correlated with the outputs.
Uh-huh.
Um, if you put more in and don't get more out, this is a recipe for burnout.
Uh-huh.
Um, Whereas if you put more in and keep getting more out, and where more can be, more customer impact, business impact, personal growth, comp, et cetera, right? Um, you want the inputs to be correlated with the outputs.
Right.
Um, Two is everyone around you should be doing the same. Meaning, if you're the only one working hard, if I'm the only one working hard, I'm not going to be very motivated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but if everyone else is, working really hard around me towards the same goals, like, of course, like I need to keep up. Um, and then third is like the goals need to be very clear, right? No one likes sprinting back and forth, right? If the goals are changing underneath you, so everyone needs to kind of be swimming in the same direction. And I think when you get those ingredients and you're pointing towards the right goals, you can do some pretty great things with a small team.
I have to say, Dan, you strike me as someone who is wise beyond their years when it comes to being a CEO. So congratulations on all of that, and all the success. It's Nooks is an amazing story, for really something that's you've been doing the sales thing for less than 4 years now, right? And so it's pretty wild.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you.
so let's shift gears. I know we're running out of time. Let's find out a little bit more about Dan. Like everybody in your company who listens to this is going to want to find this out. So what's one thing we'd be surprised to know about you?
I grew up playing ice hockey.
Okay.
Um,
Where'd you
this
grow up?
seems right. I grew up in New Jersey.
Okay.
Uh, yeah. So, my mom taught me to ice skate when I was little. My dad taught me to rollerblade when I was little.
Nice.
And I kind of just naturally got into hockey, and I played, since I was little through the club team at Stanford.
Uh-huh.
Um, uh, yeah, I think,
You still
I,
play?
I'll skate. Sometimes uh I don't play, ice hockey is probably one of the most inaccessible sports.
Right.
You need
Especially
you
especially in
need
Northern
Zamboni
California.
with 10 players and a ton of gear and a referee.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not a solo sport for sure.
not to
Yeah.
mention goalies.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, separate from that, okay, you can't give this one as an answer. What do you like to do for fun? Yeah.
So I stopped playing ice hockey. Like I like outdoors. So I rock climb. I got a paddleboard recently. I'll paddleboard. I hike. I do winter. Ski, snowboard a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, anything outside.
Nice. Nice.
Slackline. Got into that over the pandemic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. All right. Um, and then, what's a product, besides your own, what's a product that you love and why? Right?
Yeah. I live in Slack.
Yeah.
Probably my most used app. Um, as I'm sure probably most people listening can relate.
Mhm.
Um, probably pretty self-explanatory, but I think it's a huge part of our culture. And uh, I'd say Slack is the new social media,
Yeah.
especially as more and more things are going on where it's like, oh, that's interesting. It's good to know. Um, yeah,
Well, we have, Tamar Yehoshua, who is the CPO of Slack and was on the show recently, is one of our investors, and so, she'll be very happy to hear that. I'll pass it along. Yeah.
love it.
Um, I agree. And then just finally, how can our listeners kinda stay in touch with you and help you on your journey and Nooks's journey?
Yeah. I'd say if you know amazing people,
Mhm.
we are hiring across the board,
Okay.
across engineering, product, design, sales. All the go to market. Um, so definitely, you can reach out to me. Add me on LinkedIn. You can, apply on the careers page. Just get in touch with us. If you know uh, people that should be using Nooks,
Mhm.
any teams that are trying to generate more pipeline, which I imagine a lot of you are.
Pretty much all.
Um, yeah, definitely, come visit the website, submit a demo request.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah,
Sounds great. Dan, it's been great to have you on the show. Really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for taking the time.
yeah, thank you too.
All right. We'll see you.